Caleb Turner had lived alone on his ranch for many years, and he thought he had seen almost everything the land could show a man. But nothing prepared him for the sight he came across that warm afternoon. He had been riding along the fence line, checking for broken posts after a night of strong winds. The sun stood high, the earth shimmered, and dust rolled in light breezes. As he guided his horse around a bend near the creek, he saw someone sitting on a flat rock close to the water. At first, he thought it was just a traveler resting. But as he came closer, he noticed the figure was a young woman, tired, frightened, and holding something tightly wrapped in a small piece of cloth. Caleb slowed his horse, not wanting to startle her. She didn't notice him at first. She was staring at the water, her hands shaking slightly as she clutched the cloth bundle. When she finally looked up, her eyes widened with fear. She pushed herself back as if she wanted to run, but her legs looked too weak. Caleb lifted one hand slowly to show he meant no harm. He had met scared folks before, and he understood fear could make a person do strange things. "Ma'am, are you all right?" he asked in a calm voice. She didn't answer. She held the cloth bundle even closer to her chest. Caleb could see she had dust on her clothes, small scrapes on her arms, and her hair looked like she had been traveling for days without rest. She looked young, maybe in her mid-20s, but her eyes carried a heavy sadness. He climbed down from his horse and stayed a few steps away. "I won't come closer if you don't want me to. I just want to help." After a long moment, she finally spoke. Her voice was soft and unsteady. "Please, don't touch me. Don't take the cloth off. Please." Her words confused him, but he nodded quickly. "I won't touch it. I promise." She seemed to relax just a little at his gentle tone, but her hands stayed locked around the cloth. Caleb could tell she was exhausted. She looked like she had not eaten properly for days. He pulled out his water canteen and placed it on the ground between them. "You can drink if you want. I'll stand back." She stared at the canteen like it was the first drop of rain after a long drought. She slowly reached for it and took a small sip, then another. Caleb watched her chest rise and fall, as though even drinking water brought her relief after suffering for too long. "What's your name?" he asked. After thinking for a moment, she finally said, "Maria." "Well, Maria, you look like you need someplace cool to rest. The sun will get hotter soon. My place isn't far. You can sit on the porch for a while. No harm will come to you." She looked down at the cloth again, then shook her head. "I can't stay long. I just need to keep moving." "Not in your condition," Caleb said softly. "You'll faint if you walk more. At least rest for a little while." Maria's eyes filled with worry, as though she was trying to decide whether he was safe to trust. Caleb had seen that look before in people who had been through hard times, people unsure if the next stranger would help or hurt them. He stepped back a few paces to give her space, hoping the distance would make her feel safer. The wind blew lightly, carrying the scent of wild grass. Maria looked at the ground, then at Caleb, then at the cloth bundle. She seemed torn inside. After a long pause, she whispered, "All right. Just for a short time." Caleb helped her stand, carefully keeping his distance. She was unsteady on her feet. He offered his arm, but she shook her head, so he let her walk slowly on her own. He guided his horse beside them just in case she needed support. The ranch house wasn't far. It was a small wooden cabin, simple but clean, with a big oak tree beside it for shade. When Maria saw it, her shoulders loosened just a little, like the sight of shelter gave her a small sense of safety. Caleb pulled out a chair for her on the shaded porch and brought her a cup of fresh water. She drank slowly this time, making the water last. She still held the cloth close, as if her life depended on it. Caleb wanted to ask what she was hiding inside it, but he remembered her terrified words near the creek. She had begged him not to take the cloth off. He didn't want to scare her again, so he stayed quiet. "I can make you something to eat," he said. "Nothing fancy, but it'll help you feel better." She nodded weakly. While he went inside to make bread and warm a small bowl of stew, he kept glancing through the window to make sure she didn't faint. She sat very still, her hands never leaving the cloth. Sometimes she pressed it lightly, almost like she was checking if something inside was still there. When Caleb brought the food outside, she hesitated before taking it. It was clear she was not used to accepting help. But hunger won the battle inside her, and she took a few careful bites. Caleb noticed her eyes soften a little. Maybe she had not eaten warm food in days. After she finished eating, she leaned back in the chair and closed her eyes for a moment. Caleb could see she was near her limit. He didn't want her to fall asleep outside where the wind might chill her later, so he spoke gently. "There's a small room inside you can rest in. You don't need to worry. I'll be in the next room if you need anything." She opened her eyes, startled. "Inside?" "Yes. It's better than sitting out here." Maria shook her head quickly. "No, Her voice cracked a little. She looked at the cloth again, gripping it like it was her only shield in the world. "I can't let anyone near it. I can't let anyone see it." "I understand," Caleb said calmly. "And I won't touch it. You can hold it the whole time. I just don't want you to fall over out here." Maria looked torn again, but she finally stood and followed him. He guided her to the small guest room. She sat on the edge of the bed, still holding the cloth bundle close. Caleb noticed how she kept glancing toward the door, as if she feared someone might burst in at any moment. "You're safe here," he said. "No one knows you're here except me." Her eyes softened again, but only slightly. Fear still lived in them. As the sun lowered in the sky, the breeze brought cooler air. Caleb sat outside the room but kept the door open so she could see him. He didn't want her feeling trapped. After some time, he heard her quietly crying. Soft, painful sobs. He didn't go inside. He knew she needed space, but hearing her pain made his chest tighten. Whoever she was, whatever she was protecting under that cloth, she had been through something heavy. When night fell, he lit a lantern and brought it near her door, offering a warm glow. She finally lay down, still holding the cloth close to her heart. Before she drifted off, her voice came out in a trembling whisper. "Please, don't take the cloth off." "I won't," he answered gently. "Rest now." That night, Caleb couldn't sleep. He sat near the door, thinking about the stranger who had landed on his land like a lost bird. He wondered what danger she had faced. He wondered what she was hiding under the cloth. And he wondered why, out of all places, fate had brought her to him. He didn't have answers yet, but he knew one thing for certain. The cloth held a secret strong enough to make a brave young woman tremble. And soon, whether he wanted it or not, that secret would change his life. Caleb woke early the next morning, long before the sun began to rise. He hadn't slept more than a few minutes the entire night. Every time he closed his eyes, he thought about the young woman lying in his guest room, holding that mysterious cloth bundle as if her whole world depended on it. He kept replaying her trembling voice in his mind. "Don't take the cloth off, please." He didn't understand her fear, but he felt it. It was real, heavy, and it sat like a stone in his chest. Caleb quietly walked to the porch and looked out over the land. The sky was pale blue, just starting to brighten. Birds were waking, and the cool morning air made the silence feel fresh and clean. But even in that peaceful moment, his mind stayed fixed on Maria. He checked on her by gently looking through the open doorway. She hadn't moved from her position. She was curled around the cloth bundle, her arms wrapped tightly around it, her face pressed close, as if she was listening to something inside. Her sleep was uneven, her breathing soft but troubled. She looked like a person who had not rested properly in days. Caleb didn't wake her. Instead, he went to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. He heated a pan, cut a few pieces of bread, and made a small pot of warm tea. He wanted her to feel safe, even if he didn't know her full story yet. After some time, he heard soft footsteps. When he turned, he saw Maria standing near the doorway of the kitchen. She looked more awake, but still tired, still guarded. Her hands were wrapped around the cloth, and she held it against her chest as tightly as the day before. "You're up," Caleb said kindly. "I made some breakfast." Maria nodded slowly and stepped inside. She sat at the small wooden table but placed the cloth bundle on her lap, one hand over it protectively. "Did you sleep?" Caleb asked. She hesitated, then shook her head. "Not much. I hear things at night. Every sound makes me think someone is coming." Caleb wished he could erase the fear in her voice. "Nobody's coming here without me knowing," he said gently. "You're safe at my place." Her eyes softened for a moment, but the fear didn't fully leave. She took a small sip of tea and a bite of bread. Caleb could tell she was hungry, but she tried to hide it by eating slowly. After a few bites, she looked up. "Thank you for letting me stay." "You don't need to thank me," Caleb replied. "You needed help. Anyone would have done the same." Maria lowered her eyes. "Not everyone helps. Not everyone wants to." Caleb didn't argue. He knew the world wasn't always kind. He had seen people refuse help to strangers before, especially when the stranger looked scared or lost. He sat across from her and decided to ask carefully, without pressuring her. "Maria, yesterday you said someone was looking for you. Do you want to tell me what happened?" She froze. Her hand tightened so much on the cloth that her knuckles turned white. Her breath became shaky. "I don't know if telling you is safe," she whispered. Caleb didn't move closer. He didn't want to scare her. "Then tell me only what you're comfortable sharing. I just want to understand how to help." Maria looked at him for a long moment. Her eyes studied his face, as if she was trying to read his heart. She seemed to be searching for something: honesty, kindness, or maybe proof that he wouldn't hurt her. Finally, she spoke. "There were riders, 4 men. They were close to the wagon group I traveled with. I don't know them well, but I don't trust them." "What do they want?" Caleb asked gently. Maria swallowed hard. "Not me. Something else." She looked at the cloth bundle again. Her voice lowered to almost a whisper. "Or someone else." Caleb felt a chill run down his spine. He didn't understand the full meaning of her words yet, but the way she clutched the cloth made it clear. Whatever she was hiding was more important than her own safety. "Why are you afraid of them?" he asked. She looked up sharply. "Because if they find me, if they find this, I don't know what they will do." Caleb noticed how her hands shook. Fear lived deep inside her, but it wasn't fear of punishment. It was fear of protection, fear of losing something precious. Before he could ask more, the sound of distant hooves drifted through the morning air. Maria's reaction was immediate. She stood up shaking, her eyes wide. She pressed the cloth bundle against her chest as if she thought someone was about to rip it away. "They found me," she whispered, her voice breaking. Caleb quickly walked to the window. He saw a group of 3 riders passing down the old path in the distance. They didn't slow down, didn't look toward the ranch, and didn't seem to be searching the property. They were simply riding by. "It's all right," he said calmly. "They're just passing. They're not coming here." But Maria was breathing fast, trapped in her own fear. Caleb stepped closer carefully. "Maria, you're safe. Look at me." She finally raised her eyes. Caleb held her gaze, steady and reassuring. "You're under my roof," he said gently. "Nobody will take anything from you here." Her breathing slowed a little, but her fear didn't vanish completely. She sat down again, still gripping the cloth tightly. "Why are you helping me?" she asked suddenly. "You don't know me. You don't know what I'm carrying. You don't know what trouble might come." Caleb shrugged lightly. "Maybe I don't need to know everything right now. I can tell you're scared. And I can tell that whatever's under that cloth is important to you. That's enough for me." Maria stared at him, surprised. She wasn't used to someone helping without asking for anything in return. A small tear formed in the corner of her eye. She quickly wiped it away, embarrassed. "I'm sorry. I don't mean to cry." "You don't need to apologize," Caleb said softly. "You've been through something hard. Anyone would feel the same." The morning slowly passed. Caleb worked on small chores around the ranch, checking the animals and repairing a loose fence post. Maria watched from the porch, staying close to the house. She wanted to help, but she was too weak, too tired, and too afraid to go far from the door. Little by little, she began to talk more. She didn't reveal everything, but she shared small pieces of her journey: the wagon accident, getting separated from the group, walking for hours in the heat, hiding whenever she heard riders. But every time Caleb gently asked about the cloth bundle, she shook her head. "Please." "Not yet. I can't." He respected her wishes. Around midday, Maria almost collapsed while trying to help Caleb carry a bucket of water. The cloth bundle slipped slightly from her hands. She panicked and grabbed it again quickly, pressing it close. Caleb helped her sit down. "You don't need to do anything today," he said firmly. "Just rest. You're still weak." Maria lowered her head. "I feel like a burden." "You're not," Caleb said. "You just need time." For the first time, she gave him a small, fragile smile. "You're kinder than most people I met on the road." Caleb didn't say anything, but her words warmed him more than he expected. As the sun began to lower again, the wind grew cool. Maria sat on the porch, watching the sky turn orange, her hands still wrapped around the mystery she refused to reveal. Caleb sat nearby, giving her quiet company. Suddenly, Maria spoke again, her voice soft but steady. "I didn't run because I did something wrong. I ran because I'm trying to protect something that cannot protect itself." Caleb turned to look at her. Her eyes were filled with fear, but also determination, a strange mix of deep sadness and strong courage. Whatever she carried under that cloth, it wasn't a thing. Caleb finally understood that much. It was something fragile, something alive, something she would risk everything to keep safe. And as night settled in again, Caleb knew the truth was getting closer, whether she wanted to share it or not. Caleb woke with a strange feeling in his chest, the kind that warned a man something important was about to happen. The sky outside was gray, the air cooler than usual, and clouds hung low as if the world itself was holding its breath. He stepped quietly into the hallway and looked toward the small guest room where Maria had slept. The door was slightly open. Maria sat on the edge of the bed, clutching the same cloth bundle tightly. Her face looked pale, and her eyes were red as if she hadn't slept at all. Caleb spoke softly, not wanting to startle her. "Morning, Maria." She looked up quickly. "Is it morning already?" "Yes." "You didn't sleep?" She shook her head. "I had dreams. Bad ones. I keep hearing voices, hearing horses, thinking they're coming." Caleb walked a little closer, but made sure to keep enough space so she didn't feel trapped. "No one came here last night. I kept watch. You're safe." Her shoulders loosened just a little, but her hands stayed firmly around the cloth. She didn't let go even for a second. "Let me make some warm tea," Caleb said. "It might calm your nerves." Maria nodded weakly. He went to the kitchen and prepared tea. But when he returned, Maria tried to stand to take the cup. The moment she did, her knees buckled. The cloth bundle slipped from her arms. "Maria!" Caleb rushed forward instinctively. He caught her before she fell to the floor, but she was already losing consciousness. Her head leaned against his arm, and her voice came out faint like a whisper blown away by the wind. "Don't take the cloth off. Please." Her eyes closed completely, and she went still. Caleb placed her gently on the bed. Then he looked down at the cloth bundle resting on the floor. It was small, wrapped carefully, tied at one corner. He felt a strange pressure in his chest. Something inside it might be the reason she was running, the reason she was scared, the reason she had wandered alone under the sun for 2 days. But he remembered her words, her pleading voice full of fear. He didn't want to break her trust. But what if she was hurt? What if something dangerous or fragile was inside that needed help immediately? What if she collapsed because of something hidden under that cloth? His hand trembled slightly as he reached down. He hesitated, took a slow breath. "I'm sorry, Maria," he whispered. "If this can help you, I need to know." He lifted the bundle gently, feeling how light it was. That surprised him. It weighed almost nothing. Caleb slowly loosened the corner knot, his fingers shaking even though he didn't understand why. As he pulled the cloth open, he saw movement, a small twitch, a weak curl. Caleb froze. Inside the cloth was a newborn baby, tiny and fragile, wrapped in thin pieces of fabric. The baby's face was pale, its eyes half open, and its breath weak like a soft whisper. Caleb's heart jumped so hard he almost dropped the cloth. "Oh, my," Caleb whispered, his hands shaking. He had seen newborns before, but never one this small, this silent, this close to danger. The baby moved again, but it was barely more than a tremble. Caleb swallowed hard. A wave of emotion rushed through him, shock, fear, sadness, and a deep sense of responsibility all mixed together. Now he understood everything. Maria hadn't been carrying a secret object. She had been carrying a life, and she had been trying to protect it alone. Caleb quickly wrapped the baby again to keep it warm. He checked Maria. She was still unconscious, her breathing shallow but steady. He placed the baby between warm blankets and hurried to light the stove to warm the room. He brought warm water, soft cloths, and the gentlest food he could find for when the baby woke up, though he knew it needed milk more than anything. As he worked, his mind spun with questions. Whose baby was this? Where had Maria found it? Why were riders searching for her? And what had happened during the wagon accident that she refused to talk about? Caleb sat beside Maria, checking her forehead. It was warm, maybe from dehydration, maybe from stress. She needed rest, food, and water. But before any of that, she needed to wake up. He shook her gently. "Maria, Maria, wake up. You need to drink something." Slowly, her eyes fluttered open. She saw Caleb first, then the room, then her hands, empty. Her entire body jolted. "The cloth! Where?" Caleb carefully lifted the wrapped bundle and placed it in her arms. Maria gasped, holding the baby close, tears spilling instantly down her cheeks. "You opened it. You saw." Her voice cracked so deeply that Caleb felt it in his own chest. "I thought you were hurt," he said softly. "You fainted. I didn't know what was inside. I didn't want anything bad to happen." Maria didn't shout. She didn't get angry. She just held the baby and cried quietly, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Caleb waited until she calmed enough to speak. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "I didn't mean to hide a secret from you," she whispered. "I just didn't know if you would understand." "I'm trying," Caleb said. "I want to help, but I need to know what's going on." Maria looked down at the baby, who now rested peacefully in her arms. Her face held a strange mix of pain and love. "He was the only one alive," she said softly. "When the wagon accident happened, I heard a cry. Everyone was screaming. Everything was chaos. but I found him under a broken piece of wood, alone, crying, so small." She paused to steady her breath. "I picked him up. I didn't think. I just knew I couldn't leave him there. Then the riders came. They weren't part of our group. They saw me holding him. They tried to take him. I ran. I kept running." Caleb's jaw tightened. He understood now. Those riders weren't trying to help. They wanted the baby for reasons Maria feared. He leaned closer, speaking gently but firmly. "Maria, you did the right thing. You protected him." "But I don't know who he belongs to," she whispered. "I don't know where his family is. I don't know what those men wanted. I just knew I couldn't let them take him." Her tears fell again, landing softly on the baby's little blanket. Caleb placed a comforting hand near her arm, not touching her but letting her feel his presence. "You're safe here, both of you. No one will come through that door without going through me first." Maria looked up at him, truly seeing him for the first time. A man calm enough to think, strong enough to protect, and kind enough to care. The baby stirred in her arms, letting out a soft, tiny sound. Maria brushed his cheek gently. Caleb watched with a sense of awe. She wasn't just frightened, she was incredibly brave. "I don't know what happens next," Maria admitted. "I don't know where to go or who to trust." "You're not alone anymore," Caleb said. "We'll figure it out together." A long silence followed, a peaceful silence. For the first time since arriving at the ranch, Maria looked less like someone running from shadows and more like someone who might finally be able to rest. But deep inside, Caleb sensed that the trouble wasn't over. If those riders were still searching, they might return. And now he wasn't just protecting his ranch. He was protecting a frightened young woman, and the smallest, most fragile life he had ever seen. Caleb spent the next few minutes watching Maria hold the tiny baby close, her hands trembling but protective. Every part of her looked exhausted, her face pale, her shoulders tense, her breaths uneven, yet the way she held that newborn was gentle, steady, and full of quiet strength. He knew she had reached her limit, and yet she still fought to stay awake, to keep the child safe. "Maria," Caleb said softly, "you need to lie down. I'll watch both of you." She shook her head quickly, fear tightening her expression. "No, I can't sleep. If I close my eyes too long, someone might come. They might take him." She held the baby even closer, as if the world outside these wooden walls was filled with shadows, waiting to steal him away. Caleb sat on the edge of the bed but kept a respectful distance. "Nothing will happen here. I promise you. This ranch is quiet, and no one comes uninvited." Her lips trembled. "You don't understand. Those riders, they kept shouting. They said the baby belonged to someone important. They said they would take him. They didn't care if he cried. They didn't even check if he was hurt." Caleb felt anger stir inside him, a steady, righteous anger that came only when he sensed injustice. "I don't know who they are," he said firmly, "but they aren't getting near this place." Maria finally looked at him with eyes full of doubt and hope mixed together. "Are you sure?" "Yes," he said simply. "As long as you're under my roof, you're under my protection." She breathed out slowly, as if letting go of a little of her fear. She leaned back against the pillow, still holding the baby but with calmer arms this time. Caleb moved quietly around the room, setting water nearby, warming the air with the stove, and preparing a little broth for Maria when she regained her strength. Every movement he made was gentle. He didn't know what destiny was trying to place in his hands, but he knew one thing. He wasn't going to let fear win. After a while, Maria's eyes grew heavy, and she finally allowed sleep to take over. The baby rested on her chest, wrapped warmly and breathing peacefully. Caleb stepped outside the room, leaving the door open so she could see him if she woke suddenly. He brought a chair and placed it near the doorway, sitting there like a quiet guardian. Time passed slowly. Wind rattled the windows now and then, but the ranch stayed silent. Hours later, Maria woke with a startled breath. She looked around quickly, then relaxed when she saw Caleb dozing lightly in the chair. The baby slept in her arms, warm and calm. "You stayed there?" she asked, her voice soft. Caleb smiled a little. "I said I'd keep watch." Maria looked down at the baby and whispered, "You really meant it. Thank you." Caleb nodded. "You hungry? You need to eat something." She agreed this time without insisting she was fine. Caleb warmed the broth and brought it to her. Maria ate slowly, her strength returning bit by bit. After eating, she finally seemed ready to talk more openly. She took a deep breath. "I didn't tell you everything earlier. I didn't know if I should. But after what you did for us, I trust you." Caleb leaned forward slightly, careful not to pressure her. "You can tell me whatever you want. I'm here to help." Maria looked down at the baby again, brushing a tiny piece of fabric from his cheek. "This baby? He survived the wagon crash. His family didn't. I searched the area, hoping someone else would be alive. But there was no one. Just him." Caleb felt sadness rise in him. He knew wagon accidents were cruel. A single crack in a wheel or a sudden drop in the road could change lives in seconds. "What about the riders?" he asked calmly. Maria frowned deeply. "I don't know exactly who they were. They came after the crash. They weren't there to help. They kept shouting about taking the baby to someone. I didn't trust them. Their voices and their faces. I felt something wrong in my heart." Caleb understood. Sometimes a person's instincts spoke louder than words. "I ran because I had to," she continued. "I didn't care what happened to me. I just knew I couldn't let them take him." A small tear rolled down her cheek. She wiped it quickly. "I thought maybe I could find a safe place. Maybe there was family somewhere. But I was alone. And I didn't know who to ask for help." Caleb looked at her with admiration. "You were brave. You protected him when no one else could." Maria shook her head. "I was scared the whole time. I didn't know what I was doing. I just followed my heart." "Bravery isn't the absence of fear," Caleb replied softly. "It's doing the right thing even when fear is there." Maria's eyes filled with quiet emotion. She looked down at the baby again, who now woke slightly, moving his tiny hands. She rocked him gently. Caleb walked to the window and checked the horizon. Something inside him said today was important. Today something would change, and he was right. Before noon, a rider approached, but it wasn't a threatening man from before. It was a local lawman from town, an older man named Sheriff Harlan. Caleb recognized his horse and stepped outside before the sheriff reached the porch. "Morning, Caleb," the sheriff called. "Heard from passing traders someone saw a young woman on foot near the trail yesterday. Thought you might have seen her." Caleb took a steady breath. This was the moment where truth mattered. "She's here," he said honestly. "She needed help. She was lost and scared." The sheriff nodded, not surprised. "We also got word of a wagon crash not far from here. Devastating scene, but they're looking for survivors." Caleb's heart thudded. "Survivors?" "Yes," the sheriff said. "Part of the family back east was notified. They're desperate to know if the newborn made it. The baby's uncle has been searching everywhere. The riders nearby weren't lawmen. They were hired hands, not the family itself." Everything clicked into place. The wrong people had found Maria first, hired men sent by someone who didn't have good intentions. Caleb nodded slowly. "She has the baby, and she protected him." The sheriff's eyes softened. "Then she saved his life." Caleb led him inside. Maria immediately held the baby close, fear rising again, but Caleb reassured her gently. "He's a sheriff. He came with news, not trouble." The sheriff spoke kindly, explaining everything. The accident, the search, the worried uncle, and how news had reached town that someone might have seen a young woman fleeing with a baby because she feared the wrong men. Maria began crying softly, all the fear and pressure finally releasing. "I didn't want to lose him," she whispered. "I didn't want him taken by people who didn't care." "You did the right thing," the sheriff said, "and the true family will be grateful." They arranged for the baby to be taken safely to the uncle, a good man who had already left messages at the nearest towns promising protection and support for whoever saved the child. When the sheriff left, promising to return for them later, Maria sat quietly, the room feeling lighter somehow, like a storm had passed. "I feel relieved," she whispered, "but I'm also scared. I don't know where to go now. I don't know what my life is anymore." Caleb sat beside her. "You don't need to rush anything. You can stay here until you decide what's best for you." Maria looked at him with eyes full of gratitude. "Why are you so kind? You barely know me." Caleb smiled softly. "Sometimes the world puts people in our path for a reason. Maybe you were meant to come here." She held his gaze for a moment, and something warm passed between them. Not romance, not expectation. Just a deep human connection built through fear, trust, and kindness. Maria stayed with Caleb for days until the baby's uncle arrived. When Maria handed the baby over safely, she cried, but they were tears of peace, not fear. The uncle hugged her warmly. "You saved his life," he said. "Our family will never forget what you did." After he left with the child, Maria and Caleb stood on the porch in the quiet evening. "What will you do now?" Caleb asked. She inhaled deeply. I think I want to start over, somewhere safe, somewhere calm." Caleb looked out over his land, then at her. "You can start here if you want, as long as you need." Maria smiled, an honest, peaceful smile, and nodded. "Thank you, Caleb, for everything. You didn't just save me, you saved him too." The sun dipped behind the hills, painting the sky gold. The ranch was quiet again, but it no longer felt empty. Maria wasn't running anymore. The baby was safe. And Caleb felt something new, something calm and hopeful, settle into his life. Sometimes destiny didn't shout. Sometimes it whispered softly. Wrapped in a simple cloth, a frightened young woman begged him not to open.